What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly sports history for December 23rd, 2022. We're now just one day away from the big game down in Dallas, which, as I was mentioning last night when on Back to the Future, it's been a very, very quiet Dallas week, all things considered. And I don't know whether it's because of the holidays or the fact that the Eagles have a three-game lead, or maybe the Dallas fans just don't think the Cowboys are as good as they are. Maybe they know what everybody else knows, or maybe they're realizing it. Not sure, but we are one day away from Minshew Mania. And as I've been mentioning all week, I still don't necessarily think this is a foregone conclusion that, oh, Dallas is going to roll with this. Because the defense, it was always going to be about the defense anyway, and odds makers seem to think so anyway. At one point, the spread was 6.5, and now it's down to 4.5. And I don't know whether that's because it's certain that Minshew's playing now or whatever, but I've been following that line closely, and we will have a bet on it tomorrow. But it's not going to be an easy game by any stretch of the imagination, so don't get me wrong there. But I think it's going to be a close game, and I mean, in close games, it comes down to who can get turnovers, and right now the Eagles are the best in the business of turnovers. So I'll get way more into the breakdown of the game tomorrow, but just I've been kind of working through this with you all week, and that's where I am now. Flyers update. They had the matinee up in Toronto. They lost 4-3. They did show some heart in that game. I was following it while I was working. I was kind of following it. I wasn't watching, but it seemed like they got down, or they went up early and then got down early or late, and then had a pretty furious comeback there at the end. So you kind of like to see that, especially from a team that is in the process of rebuilding and everything like that. So you want to see guys showing some heart, some fire, and things like that. And speaking of the whole Flyers rebuild, I did record and post a new Back to the Future. The video of that should be up later this morning. I have it uploading as we speak. But nice little Christmas / holiday edition where I went through all of the four teams, and we had one New Year's what if, almost like similar to a resolution, but hey, this is what if this happens in 2023, and then one Christmas wish from Santa, and just had a little bit of fun with it. So go check that out wherever you get your podcast, Back to the Future with a PH. But today we are going to go back to 1990 and one of my favorite eras of Eagles football. I mean, if you've listened to this podcast more than once, you know how much I love the Buddy Ryan teams. And 1990 was Rich Kotite's first year as offensive coordinator. There were some questions throughout the season as I was going back through some of it jogged definitely some things in my memory. There was questions that whole season about Buddy Ryan and whether or not, because his contract was up, whether or not they were going to renew his contract, extend him, whatever it was. So that was kind of clouded the entire season. But they started off 1-3 and then 2-4, getting adjusted to Rich Kotite's offense. And I think because it was more of a structured offense and more run heavy, which at that point the Eagles never really ran the ball well. And I don't know whether that was by design, whether that was because of not having the running backs to do it. I know the offensive line was always a question mark with those teams, but under Rich Kotite, he wanted to run the ball somewhat more. And that year they ran for like 2,500 yards, which ironically enough was the most of any team in the 90s for a single season. So it definitely changed what they did, and obviously it took them a while to get adjusted. And you have the Randall quotes and everything. He wasn't happy about it at first, but then it kind of grew on them. So with all that being said, they did put it together and went on a nice little run. So going into their week I guess it would have been week 16 back then. Or no, I guess it still would have been week 17 because they did have the bye weeks. So it would have been their week 16 matchup versus the Cowboys at the Vet. The Eagles found out, because the NFL did the Saturday night games, they found out the night before that Washington lost to the Colts. So they had their destiny for a home playoff game in their hands. So all they had to do was beat the Cowboys, beat the Phoenix Cardinals, and Washington would then come to the Vet for a playoff game. So the Eagles went out and took care of leg one of that. They beat the Cowboys 17-3, completely dominated them by any stretch of the imagination that they always did back then. But 17-3 at the Vet, it was a balmy 63 degrees. And I don't necessarily remember it being that warm, but not that I was at the game, but I don't remember being that warm around Christmas ever. So it's just an interesting thing I happened to see. But Calvin Williams caught an 18-yard touchdown pass from Keith Byars. That was something that happened a lot, especially during this time. Like, Keith Byars was just an everyman, and he did whatever needed. He could have probably been an all-pro tight end if that's where they kept him. He had some knee issues, so he wasn't as good as a running back, but he was one of my favorite players. And, I mean, he threw a couple touchdown passes in his career. Played a long, solid career. Like I said, he just never really – he didn't fit into any one position. So they just played him wherever. And this happened even when he went to – I believe he went to Green Bay, and then he was in New England with Bill Parcells as well. But Eric Allen also returned a 35-yard interception return, which it seemed like he did all the time as well. They did knock out Troy Aikman in that game. So this is one of the games Troy Aikman, or one of the times he talks about when he says he hated going to Philly and just got beat up all the time. And I didn't realize this. It was the sixth quarterback the Eagles got that knocked out of a game that season. So, I mean, part of that was the rules, but part of it is just how nasty. And this defense wasn't quite where they were going to get to at this point either. So they're still growing and learning at that point. So the next week, they did go out to Phoenix and beat the Cardinals 23-21. So Washington did come to Philadelphia for the wild card game, and that game was close. And Phoenix, for whatever reason, always played the Eagles close, and I feel like it was always like a 23-21 game, no matter what back then. Earlier in the season, they beat them at the Vet. I think it was like the second game of the season, 23-21. Like, it's always a 23-21 game when the Phoenix Cardinals and the Philadelphia Eagles play. And it was, I don't know why or what it was, but they always played them tough. So the Eagles did finish 10-6 that year. They lost to Washington 20-6, and we know what happened in that 1991 year when Randall blew out his knee. Washington, that team just was dominant, and by many people are considered one of the best all-time teams ever, specifically in the Super Bowl era. So they put it together. But on this day in 1990, the Eagles dominated the Cowboys 17-3 at the Vet to set themselves up for a win and get a home playoff game against the Cardinals the following week. Be sure to check out the Back to the Future Christmas/holiday special for this week. I know a lot of people have half days or either off today. Good thing to have playing in the background while you're working or wrapping presents or whatever it is you have to do. But we will be back tomorrow with the Eagles preview from the Cowboys. We'll have our bet to see if we can move one more game closer to 500 again. But go have yourselves a Thursday. That's right. Today's Friday. I'm all screwed up because of it being the holidays. Jesus. Go have yourselves a Friday. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.